S1E7, episode 7 of the Talk Me Through Your Process podcast with Ramona, Chris, and myself. And today I called this episode Check In ... again, because the last time we met, we were checking in, and it appears as though we are checking in again. I have to say, my perspective is that the way this school year has unfolded, it's really disrupted a lot of my thinking around leadership, and it's really disrupted my process in some ways. I know Chris would argue that this disruption has probably benefited my process, and I'm not saying that to joke or make fun, Chris. I'm just saying that I'm getting your vibe lately, and that's probably what you'd say to me. So whatever it is, whether it's benefiting me or not, it has caused disruption. Things are different, right? Like, I never get a chance to talk to my principal and vice principal ever, unless it's over a COVID issue. Like, oh, we need to clean your class, you need to get out of your room, or just management type things. I've not had planning time since 17 planning times in a row type of thing. So when am I supposed to go talk to people? After school, when I'm really exhausted and I like to come home and spend time with my family. Before school, when I'm in the building preparing and getting things ready. Lunchtime, I go out most days for a walk. Then when I come back, I do more planning. I have duty one recess. That leaves me with 15 minutes wide open at another recess. Kids stay in. I use the bathroom. Like, it's the way we're running the school now is 110% different than it was run pre-COVID. And I feel like it's all managerial. There's no lead. It's not leadership. There's no leadership. It's there. My guys are managing the building. They're making sure there are teachers in the room. They're making sure that, like, there's enough staff to run the school effectively. Like, these are the things we're focused on. So it's thrown me for a loop. I've not been able to go down the path that I wanted to, all the discussions and conversations and checking in with my principals about, school improvement plan and, what are we doing and how are we looking at this and what's my role in it? None of that has come to fruition. None of it. And so as we check in again, I think things have gotten worse in terms of I've not found my way to the office to talk to my principals. And I've got a new vice principal. So my old vice principal left, got a new vice principal, and he's been running around since the day he got into the building because there's all kinds of things to be done. There's no time to talk leadership. He came in one morning to say something to me and said, "Hey, if we ever get a minute, I'd really like to talk to you about what got you into this building and how are you doing with this? Like, how are you doing with helping run a school during this COVID time?" And it's funny because he laughed and he said, like, they didn't teach me none of this stuff was in the PQP. Like, nothing I'm doing now was addressed in the PQP. He goes, well, I don't even know. They didn't even talk about making schedules. And he goes, I was just, here are the schedules. Make sure they work. And I give him 2 thumbs up for the honesty. That's what I'm looking for. And I said to him, man, good on you. Like, I don't know how you're doing this, but good on you. You signed up for it, and here you are. You're serving, you're leading, you're doing your thing. He's like, thanks, and boom, he was gone. Didn't see him again for the rest of the day because he's doing stuff. He's making sure the building's running. People are in class. People are learning. Kids are safe. Teachers are safe. Staff is safe. So there's my bit of a check-in there in terms of, like, my process is, I'm working on building my capacity still. It just looked really different than what I thought it would look like.
I love the leadership leadership management is actually what so I just finished module 9 PQP2, And that's what we came out of. We just had our week-long discussion, 2-week-long discussion around leadership and management. And I have a different kind of, it changed me, sort of like my thinking, management and leadership management, which is I've kind of, to a degree, I'm starting to let go of the idea of stability versus change, good versus bad, bureaucrat versus, growth mindset. One of the things that I came across in this, the latter part of this module was talking about how much, one that often, both leadership and there's a synergy between the two of them where one can set up the other. So right away, that makes it less about a binary and more about how managerial tasks generally are the apprentice level of things. Like your managerial tasks, as we've sort of noticed, become the dotting the I's, the flow charts, the spreadsheets, the understanding procedures and protocols, staffing, like all these kind of like detaily things. And there's an element, I love what the example you used about your VP not being taught how to do this stuff, or even stuff about schedules, because I think that's kind of the new fluency of arriving at a school. It reminds me of the other conversation. I don't know, maybe Ramona, you might have circled through this a few times. The whole idea of being able to get spec ed experience from faculty was sort of like, it was like the golden goose. Individuals that didn't have to take, there was nobody coming out of my cohort, my year, that I sort of encountered when I got hired that had any clue of what it meant to be a cert. Yet everyone was grabbing, so they didn't have a clue what it meant to be a cert because the topic wasn't addressed at faculty. I could have gone to a seminar one night, signed up for it, but it wasn't integrated into our learning. So I think about the things that, whatever the broad strokes that I'm going through in the PQP, and it's really fascinating to be of two minds, where in a lot of ways the PQP is teaching us leadership. I think it really is focused on these kind of like bigger kind of pieces, these conversations that we're having conversations in our classroom. I'm not going to have these conversations for the first 5 years of if I become an administrator. I'm not going to get to talk about, necessarily equitable hiring practices and trying to understand, how do you affect size? Like, we're not going to get to these kind of conversations in the first beginning, because I'm going to be arriving at a school and they're going to say, okay, you have to do the grade 8 registration thing, go for it. Or you have 15 IPRCs to sit in on, so you need to be the principal. Like, I'm going to be given management tasks while you're slowly growing your leadership chops. So I think there's there's going to be a progression there where you're going to get a little bit of the grunt work when you get there, because I don't think I will have the fluency to be able to do the other things. But I love the management and the leadership conversation now, because I think that everyone in my PQP wants to be a leader. I told you about my experience in the first one where the superintendent said, look at all the happy faces out there. Bitch can't wait to be a vice principal. And a lot of the students were like, oh yeah, yay. And I was sort of like in box 16 in the bottom right corner. I'm like I can't say yes, because I'm looking at COVID school creeping up in September. I'm like, I'm if we had it in the Brady Bunch stack of all the people, it'd be me. Like, really? Like I'd be looking at all the really? Don't sign up for it yet. And I know some of them already had administrative jobs to roll into. But again, the conversations that we were having in PQP1 for some of these individuals that were going in, and I don't know what board it is. I don't know what board it is where you can have your PQP1 and you can actually be like an acting vice principal. But some of them, one or two of them were actually, they already had the role. They knew they were going into the role. But I just thought to myself, you're enjoy these leadership conversations now, because what you're going to be handed is the big binder of management. And then you're going to get the multi-tome volume 2 to 25 about COVID management and go for it. And there's nothing wrong with learning that stuff. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. But I feel for some of my colleagues. I hope they flew. I hope they just flew and they loved it. But I do feel for some of my colleagues that jumped in. I'm thinking about the acting administrators that are this past year, jumping in, and all the management that they're doing. And I think, this is probably a long game kind of a year. So all the management tools, all the highly specific management tools that admin are learning this year, it'll be really fascinating to see how they get integrated into common practice moving forward. Like, will the safety protocols still be a part of it? Communication protocols, all of our sort of digital meetings that we're having now instead of doing face-to-face. Management and leadership, if this whole year has been, I think, about management, I'm trying to think of what is it setting up for the leadership opportunities. So I'm being kind of hopeful that way. I just think it's stalled this year in management if we're trying to put different types of tasks together. So if this year really was about trying to keep the ship straight and focusing on the details, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, that will be valuable next year. We roll into full online in September. We got all our Google Forms, copy, make a copy of, move forward. We know how to hand out tech on the fly. We know how to switch from face-to-face to not face-to-face. All those management tasks will be good to go.
But what if they get stuck in that management rut?
I think a lot of people are getting crushed in that management rut. I know for me, I am, what's the term? It's an area of growth for me to actually be able to read a spreadsheet and not literally, as I'm reading the spreadsheet, start drawing and coloring and forget that I was looking at a spreadsheet. That takes a lot of work for me. I'll say that flat out. Like, I only imagine me at my first whatever staff meeting, and they're like, "What's Clef doing?" "Oh, he's watercolor painting. That's what he does to process." As he's writing some poetry.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. You come, you sit down, you open a briefcase, and they're like, "What's the VP doing?" "Oh, he's just getting ready for the meeting." And the principal's talking, you're painting, and then you jump in every now and again, like a podcast. Like is Chids here? No. Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah. So,
no, it's
yeah.
I think so, and I know that's an area of growth for me. So if I had the opportunity and somehow, I know for a fact that this year, had I been, I would not have been an effective manager. I would not have been an effective manager, mostly because, again, that's not an area of strength for me. It's not. They'd be like, someone asked me, okay, so this mask or this mask? And then 35 minutes later, we're talking about Friere and this poet that I really liked, and what'd you have for dinner on the weekend? And they're going back to their staff member, like, okay, what mask are we supposed to wear? I don't know. Clef started talking about the kind of watercolor brushes he likes. I didn't really get it. And then this long metaphor about chasing squirrels. So I know my areas of strength, and your VP jumping in this year, him saying that he doesn't have, there was no training in this. Hope tactically and his fluencies fall in shape of being able to follow those spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, because that's what this year's been all about. There's other stuff happening too. Don't get me wrong. There's other stuff happening too, but I feel like it really are this past year has played havoc. It's played havoc with that idea of leadership growth. I'm fortunate. I have had quite a few conversations. I have access to my admin quite regularly. So I have had several conversations. It always feels like it's compressed, though, between having to do, there's so much work to take care of online learning, so much work. So there were so many truncated conversations, you just can't follow it up. There's no sweet kind of like idea that you sort of suck out of the conversation. It's just like, oh, like a call pops up, like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, talk to you later. You never talk later. You never get back to the conversation. So I think that's one of when I talked about, I think in our on-ramp, talking about some of the damage, I have so many loose ends on conversations from this year that I know I will never be able to go back and capture those moments ever. I'm never going to make it back to my list of wanting to close those loops and get to a space of understanding and some command of the wisdom that the leaders in my school were offering. There's just no way to make it back to it. So we move forward. It's a management year.
That's key. Move forward. What's really cool for me is when I read the Monday morning memo and I see in the memo the principals are meeting to deal with this or that. And it's meetings, they're what I would call building capacity meetings, right? Like I'll see the vice principal is not available on this day at this time because he's in some kind of induction meeting. And I'm thinking, okay, this is good. Like for me, looking forward and thinking about, like for me, I've moved into a zone where now I'm okay. I'm looking to participate more in extracurriculars, whatever they look like. So I'm doing the Girls Who Game program again, which takes up a lot of time and energy, but it is so worth it. And it brings me so much joy to actually not be thinking about my Google Classroom and, the lessons that afternoon. Now it stinks that I don't have planning time to plan those things in the building, but I know that at lunchtime on this day, I'm going to be with these amazing students watching them do some amazing stuff and support them. Right. So but when you asked me November or December, hey, what are you thinking of extracurriculars? I was going to tell you to take a hike because I was maxed out and tapped out. I had no broadband left because of the way I had to operate in my classroom. And then the pivoting business, right? Like my school's pivoted one more time than everybody else because we had an issue. And now we're pivoting again. And I've shifted. Like now I'm pro pivot in terms of, okay, just put me online so I can teach again. Right? Like all the disadvantages of being in the building. Now I don't have those disadvantages anymore. Now, trust me, talk to me next Thursday and I'll be able to fill you quickly in on the disadvantages of teaching online as opposed to in person. But online, I'm guaranteed some things that will help me build my capacity that's not happening in the building. So I feel like this moving forward, Clough, it's the ultimate end game for me. So at the end of my reflections and the end of my thinking process and the end of my positivity or my negativity is, okay, get up and start moving forward again. And I'm starting to feel that a little bit. And I know Ramona Clough and I have talked about this, but like the work that I'm kind of getting involved with in my board around equity and inclusion's really lit me up too. So it's like a great distraction from everything else that's happening. And it's like me flexing some leadership, and it's flexing leadership in what I would call an authentic way. Not to say that what the other things I'm doing is not authentic, but it's authentic in that like it's coming right out of me, right? Like lived experience connected with readings and discussions moving right into action. And it's like I feel like I'm perfectly poised and in the right place to start doing some system level work with other people on my board. And to other people, they look at me like, you're nuts. You're nuts to involve yourself with that at this time. And I'm like, this is the perfect time because I need to move forward. I can't just sit here and do nothing around that realm. And because it's coming right out of me, it's like I have to contain the excitement. I have to contain it and shape it so it doesn't completely exhaust me. So there are shifts left, right, and center. They're happening all the time, everywhere. And this break, that I thought Christmas break was what I needed. This break is like, I was telling Ramona in the on-ramp club that my family made a comment at dinner. They're like, Dad, it's like you've not been around this break. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, you're playing video games or you're having a nap. Like you're not They called it being cocooned. They're like, you're cocooned. You're like off in a corner and you're just kind of protected in some layer of whatever is keeping you insulated type of thing. Which I jokingly said to Ramona, I guess that means I need to step up and start cooking dinner like tomorrow night, the next night, because I'm getting the vibe that I'm not participating with the family, right?
Somebody noticed.
Oh, they all noticed. But so I said, I'm like, so what does it look like for me to be engaged? And they're like, well, it's not really that. So it's hilarious because we're eating dinner and they can't tell me. They can't really give me, I'm looking for hard information, right? And they can't give it to me. It's all soft. So I'm like, okay, so I'm going to move forward. I'll probably cook dinner for the next few nighs. And I'll probably do something daddish tomorrow, like clean the entire house and get in their way. Like, hey, get out of the way. I'm trying to vacuum here. And then I'll be back to my normal self. But I've just been feeding my soul. And yes, that includes video games. That includes taking naps. It also includes like going for walks and exercising, which I've been doing like crazy just to breathe in the air and like do stuff that I never get to do anymore, because I'm so wrapped up in the work and the stress of work. So it's really good that we get to talk, because I'll never forget us talking before Christmas break about some plans that we were kind of had over Christmas break to get together. And the three of us didn't even communicate because I think we were just that exhausted. This just didn't hold water. Like, meeting and talking about our process just wasn't the right thing to do at that time. And I value the fact that we didn't push it. I really respect that and value that with the two of you, that nobody pushed it. We just left it. And here we are today checking in again.
But if we pushed it, then that's kind of counterproductive to what we want this to be. Right? If we're pushing a conversation that we're not ready to have, then why are we doing it? We're doing it because we want to get so many episodes out. Like I mean, it goes back to that managerial situation, right? Are we managing this podcast, or are we leading this podcast? Is this something that we want to grow from, or is this something that we're just doing?
Yeah. Definitely grow.
Yeah. Definitely and I'm feeling right. We were on the on-ramp, we were talking, and I said it's amazing what a couple of days off can do for your mental health, because I snapped at a few people on Friday, and I don't like to snap at people. And I was realizing as I did, I need this break. And, after like 4 solid days of gardening, I think I've worked some of those demons out. Either that, or my back just can't even deal with it anymore. But I think we needed that time to let some of these things percolate.
My PQP2 is not, I don't feel as connected to it as I did the PQP1. And I think I started by being bothered by that, and I kind of went to a place of, there's got to be something, like, I wanted to make it about the experience that I was being afforded, in the actual course. And I was making reasoned connections as to why I wasn't feeling as connected to it. I think the big part of me not being, I've come to accept that the big part of not feeling connected to it is actually, there's a deeper purpose in that. When I took the PQP1, I took it in July. I didn't have much going on in July. Like, it was, my family was off kind of doing their stuff. I wasn't prepping for classes. So I just sat there, and it was everything. And it was intensive, right? It was like a 5-weeker or 5.5-weeker. It was an intensive. So it was everything. I actually could give everything to it. No one was pulling me out of that focus, for better or for worse. Dad, Clough, husband, was like buried in a course. Only check in with him, like wait for him to come down. He's probably in a conference or something. Family gave space, and I just dove right in. This PQP is happening at the same time as 1,000 other things happening. So I think where I've kind of landed is this particular PQP experience is closer to what I would call a balanced way to take a PQP than the one in July was. That was fantasy world. That I could just sit down. I could actually walk away from my family, grab a cup of coffee, basically treat my house like an office space. Come down, have lunch, hey family, and then go back up and keep working. One of the gifts of doing PQP2 right now is that I don't have the time to become obsessive about it. I don't have the time to give it all my focus. It's one of my things that I'm focused on. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that it's sort of diffused and sitting there. I think that's a good reminder about how work should be integrated into your life. And like I said, when I started, I was looking at it as a negative thing. There's still things about the course that I have real beef with, but not the disconnection. No, not the disconnection. And it's not to the point of being cavalier. I'm still doing the work. I'm getting it done within the week that I have to get it done. But I'm not crushing myself to answer every single response. I'm not push. It just, there's other spaces where I need to be. This particular conversation, one of them, because it coalesces my thinking. And you're absolutely right. Ramona mentioning to force an episode. None of us are guests on the show, right? It's not like we are kind of frozen in time and we can only have a conversation at one specific. Well, I guess it is kind of sometimes specific because we want it to dance well with our lives. But none of us are guests here. We're sort of all active members of this circle. So you're right. If it has to be scheduled, then it only has like 33.3 repeated chance of being the right scheduled time. Because you got your own stuff going on. So I like coming to this. It's funny. I have the same diffusion problems though. It's almost like I get back to the conversation and I'm like, whew, yeah, okay, good. They're still down for talking. We're still down for talking. We're still down for talking. Good. Because I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave the project. But I think there is something almost naturally strained about this because all of us have have learned to, and I think have a small level sort of expectation that our conversations around education can be a lot more convenient than this podcast. We can get to them in other spaces, and we've all produced a lot of content out there that kind of proves the point. We want to talk about something, we find someone to talk about. It's kind of fascinating that the three of us together, it ain't that easy. And maybe it probably shouldn't be. It's a reflection probably of us having a whole lot of other stuff to take care of too. And that's a good thing.
Well, I'm loving that. The fact that we're talking about this stuff and the fact that we're not forcing things, I think is a testament to the three individuals sitting here at this table. We have things to do. We have other obligations. Years ago, I probably would have been very upset with my family for them coming out and telling me that I've not been around the past few days, that I've been kind of distant. No, really, I would have taken offense. But I didn't take offense today. I literally I was eating my dinner, listening to them. And I had this, probably because I listened to Brene Brown before dinner, but I was all like focused on, okay, listen to what they have to say, right? Because I know maybe they're saying it and they're a little bit concerned about what my reaction's going to be. And, like I said, I asked some questions. They couldn't really answer my questions. So I've made a decision on what I'm going to do tomorrow. And it's the feedback, right? They felt the need to give it to me, and I feel the need to act on it. I think it's the same with the three of us in terms of the relationship we have and the conversations we can have here is that when one day when we look back on our conversations that we recorded like this, I think it's going to be a lot more powerful to all three of us to see that we were able to just come together without a guest, without a particular topic in mind, and talk about, because we're talking about our process, right? Like I've been flat out about how I'm feeling these days and what's kind of shifted in me around leadership, formal leadership. And the two of you have also said a bit of your piece. And Clough, I'm really appreciating what you said about the PQP and how it's just part of your flow, but it's not your whole thing. Because in the summer it was like for that month or whatever, that was what you were doing. And this time around, it's weird. I'm reminded that, oh, Clough is taking the PQP too. I should check in, see how he's doing. But it's like not even on my radar because you're not really putting it on my radar. You're not really talking about it. The other day you said, hey, Roland, can we get together? I'm like, yeah. And you're like, okay, it's got to be this time because I need to do a PQP thing. Like I need to get it done and then it's done and I can move on. I'm like, oh shoot, he's taking PQP. Like it's not like it was in the summer, but the summer's magical. I don't know about you two, but the summer always does something to me where I feel like you should see the projects that I want to work on in the summer. It's like all I see is this empty road ahead of me. That's all I see. And the sun at the end of it. And then all the stops along the way are the things I do, right? Go away with my family, do some reading, engage in some new learning, make new connections, continuously reflect and find new things that I might be able to do with my students in the coming year. It's just awesome. And I think, Clough, you were in the middle of awesome, but you were doing PQP hardcore. And, I know, Ramona, you like to golf. And so you were probably focused on those good things and not having to worry about any of this stuff. And I think this summer for me is going to be, I'm going to do those cool things, but I'm also going to take the time. I'm going to take the time to just like totally step away from my experience this year as a classroom teacher and the online learning and the face-to-face learning and the back and forth, that tennis match, right? Back and forth. Chris knows, I don't know if you've heard me say it, Ramona, but every time I go from face-to-face to online and then back to face-to-face, I lose a part of myself. Something's gone. And this time around, when they announced that we were going to be at home, I felt nothing. In fact, I was a little bit happy because it meant that I was going to get preparation time again. And my kids and my wife are looking at me like, you're nuts. And I'm like, I'm not nuts. I'm losing pieces of me. And then I'm looking at, they're going to do whatever they want with us, right? They're going to make us teach online. They're going to make us teach face-to-face. That's how it operates. And so you find the best of both worlds. And now I'm ready. They tell me I'm shifting. Okay, I'm shifting. And I know what that looks like. But I was numb. I'm kind of numb to it. And I had to actually explicitly say to people, I'm not doing any schoolwork until at least Saturday. I'm just not going to do it. No matter how much there is to be done, I'm not thinking about it or touching it until Saturday because I needed this time. I need more than just a weekend, right? And I'm doing it, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation today because it's part of me beefing back up and getting the energy I need to move on. We do have a comment from a visitor who actually I was just interacting with on Twitter. Miss Louise, she's a teacher in my board. And it's funny because she tweeted about kind of like the negative experiences we're feeling or having and how we move on. And I responded with, moving on is great, but for me, it's very important that we acknowledge the negative. Please, I don't do well with people pretending that it's all good all the time. So her and I were kind of having a back and forth, and she's all about hope and she's all about moving forward. And, she comments here, the open road and the horizon in the distance. I can't wait to see that. And I can't wait to feel the heat that comes off of that sun when I'm standing there just looking at it. Thanks for checking us out, Irma.
Yeah. Do you ever find, like last summer I was doing PQP2, that sometimes that big open space, because I love thinking about summer in that big open space, but then I have to resist the urge to fill that big open space as well. And I don't mean fill it with things that will improve my wellness so much as things that I think I need to do to improve my practice. So take a course or be part of a committee that puts something together for online learning or just the million things that you can say yes to sometimes to fill that space. And sometimes I struggle with that. And I know that last summer I felt almost exhausted at the end of it as if it hadn't happened. And I've been trying to make a promise to myself not to do that this year, to just do exactly what you said, Chris, or not Chris, sorry, Roland, to see that big open space and let that big open space happen and just be filled with fun, with the warm sun, with hopefully not too many slices of maybe a few balls rolling in the hole.
I like the I've got stuck in the loop before of like what's that like product development. You don't feel like you're actually learning anything for the enjoyment of learning. You feel like you're just trying to keep your credential, your credential card kind of loaded up. And I've gotten into that space before. This past 2 years, actually, I've really started to pay attention to kind of carrying the weekend with me throughout the week, so that I'm reminding myself that it doesn't matter what happens on Saturday and Sunday if I'm not enjoying part of it on Monday through Friday. And part of that mindset, it's incredibly difficult, but I mean, from Monday to Friday, it just comes down to hours in the day. There's a larger number of the hours in the day that my employers take in with me. So the ones that are left, I have more personal control over what I do with those. On the weekend, I have more hours that are available to me that are, under my personal control, but I'm still trying to give some time to my employer as well. And I think by sort of doing that, I talk to my students about this too, protecting the weekend becomes as much a mindset as it does like a micro moment. You can start to do some of these small things throughout the week, because I've never comfortably been the person that's fist pumping on Friday as I'm going out the building. Like I've never really had a love of that feel. In a lot of ways, I'm the guy that likes Wednesdays, because the look at the weekend feels a lot better generally than the weekend actually does. So it's like that anticipation is everything. And I'm definitely not the guy that has sort of thought to myself that summer is entirely the open road, but it's not entirely work either. And this past 2 years, I've done a better job of balancing. I think it's remarkably, I've actually done a better job of balancing work life, because I have, with more intention, said that's enough, whether it's watercolor painting or writing or doing marking or like everything. I've just allowed to take a little bit longer. I guess maybe that's the thing that I'm also connecting with right now, the PQP2, because everything is taking so long, and that's all good. It's good, but you can hear it in my voice. I'm still in transition. And my brain, in so much as I say to myself, this is kind of like maybe what you were touching on, Ramona, in so much as that I appreciate that we have more time to do it. Sometimes I get lost in that more time. Like I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, I got to finish that. I was telling Karen, she's like, why are you doing so much PQP stuff on Sunday? I'm like, I totally forgot to do 2 assignments. Now I got to sit like end to end to get it done. So.
See, that's whack to me, because that's not the Chris Clough I know. And I'm trying not to box you in, but that's not the Clough that I tend to see. But it's kind of nice to know that you're as human as the rest of us. I feel for you that this course is not moving as fast as you'd like it to, and it isn't feeding you the same way that the number one fed you. And Ramona, Chris, and I talked about this the other day. I called PQP, for me, the courses of all courses. It was an amazing experience. So I'm sitting there rambling on about it, and Clough's like, yeah, that's not my experience right now. And it was one of those things. I think you were probably painting, and then you looked up at me and you're like, yeah, that's not what's happening. And you just went back down to your painting. Because I have such fond memories of that leader. That was a true leadership experience for me. Everything
you had a lot of things. You had things coming together, though. There were things. You had. There was magic happening in order for that to come together for you.
100%. Like, it was the stars were aligned. It was the courses of all courses for me, and I've taken some courses that I really loved a lot. I just wanted to throw that in there, that it really sucks that it's not feeding you the way that you would want, to a point where you're like, oh, geez, I got 2 more assignments to do. And your wife's noticing, because you're a protect the weekend kind of guy. So the fact that you're like, your wife's looking at you like, what are you doing? Why are you doing PQP on the weekend? You're like, yeah, I got 2 assignments that didn't get done. They got to get done. That says a lot about a lot. If anybody who knows you and your philosophy around the weekends and stuff, I like what you said about being a Wednesday guy. I have become a Friday guy. And there have been, believe this or not, there have been school years where we've gotten to like the end of June and I'm looking around like, no, we can't stop now. My kids are on fire. Like, do you see what they're doing on a daily basis? And everybody's like, dude, we're done. Like, school's over. And I'm like, are you for real? I just can't believe it's over. I've become the guy who on Friday, I literally am crawling to my car and driving away, just so pumped to be leaving work. And it's not because I dislike my students or my colleagues. Oh, and it's like, what colleagues? I don't see my colleagues. Everybody's hiding in a corner with their face shield on so that nobody, have you spent any time with this teacher who's now being quarantined? Nope, I've not been with that person. Okay, you're safe. You can live your life. We don't have to quarantine you for 2 weeks or whatever. That's what it's become. So, and I used to be a Monday guy. I loved Mondays because I had my double planning on Mondays. It's a fresh start to the week. Like, there was a lot to look forward to. And then planning time stopped. And now every day is like Tuesday. It stinks. So when Friday comes, yeah, I'm crawling to that car. I've turned into a Friday guy. And for years, I wasn't a Friday guy. For years, I was a Monday guy, or not particularly Wednesday like Clough, but I wasn't looking for the week to end. I was looking forward to hockey on Saturday with my boys. Like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to get to see my kids play hockey. So I was looking forward to that. But they're playing hockey almost every night anyway. But it was just that relief, not having to worry about anything. But now I'm a Friday guy, which in some ways, and I'm not going to name names here, but in some ways, some leaders I know have told me that that's not good for me. It's not good for me to be a Friday guy and want to be a formal leader. And my response to that was, well, it cut me off. Ramona, I don't know if I told you this. I think I may have in our last update, but I was this close to applying to the most recent VP pool applications. I found out about it in our school board does weekly announcements. Got the weekly announcement email, saw it there, and I'm like, I think it's time. To the point where, I reached out to the parish priest where I attend church to say, I need to sit down and do a pastoral reference with you. And then I talked to a couple of people, and one of them was like, dude, you the Friday thing, you're a Friday guy right now. How are you going to do this job with that mentality? And it wasn't said, like, it was a good conversation, actually. And I walked away from it thinking, yeah, I'm not doing this. And then other people found out that I wasn't applying. And then they're like, what are you doing? You're ready to go. You even said it. And I'm like, yeah, but I had some conversations that really, they've made me think. And I'm not doing it. they were pissed because they're like, what happened? How did you go from this to this? And I'm like, I see it as it was just meant to be. It was meant to happen that way. I'm a Friday guy. Ramona, where would you put yourself there on the weekday list, weekend list? Are you a Friday person? Are you a Wednesday person right now? How are you feeling about all that?
I think it's been like this throughout the year. I haven't had a prep since January, so I've also had to do a lot of lunch supervisions with my kids because I'm short EAs all the time without replacements. So the days are long and the week is super long. There's no prep. It's I come home and I prep and I set my alarm and I get up the next day and I do it again and I do it again and I do it again. I am Groundhog Day personified right now. But I can also see my prep coming and I feel like, okay, when I have a little bit of time to kind of breathe, I can be a Monday gal again. I can be that gal again. I'm not right now though.
The cool thing, sorry, Clive.
Everyone's like, who's going to jump in on that?
I just wanted to jump in on the cool thing. So the one day I was kind of sitting at my chair, I wasn't really crying, but I was just like down in the dumps and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And I switched like that and I thought, okay, put your leadership hat on. What's going on downstairs with the principal and the vice principal? With all this, nobody's getting planning time and this and that. And it was pretty awesome to put myself in their shoes as someone who's interested in possibly doing that job at some point. I was like, okay, so my principal, and this is something he told me, I wake up in the morning and I do some professional reading online with my iPad. He wakes up in the morning and he goes into the supply, teacher, and EA system to see who's not coming to work today and whether they have somebody coming in for them. That's the reading he does in the morning. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so as I'm sitting here dying and crying that I don't have any preparation time again, he's the one that has to tell me every day, you're not getting your preparation time today. He's the one making sure that at the very least, his school has the staff it requires to run properly and safely. And he's putting out fires all day long because at my school, I don't know about your school, but every now and again, somebody be like, hey, did you see Joe Blow? No, what happened? He wasn't feeling well at lunch. If he did the COVID screening, he'd fail. They had to send him home. Well, who's got his class? I don't know, spec ed? Or the French teacher that's not really there because there's no, like, somebody took over the class. They had to. This person's not well anymore. So then I think, okay, I think I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm just in here with my 22 kids. I'll make it work, And then I see them stretch themselves. I see my administrators stretch themselves. So the one day I was walking down the hall and I see my principal and he goes, I was just looking for you. I said, dude, I went for my walk. I don't stick around at lunch. There's no good news here. So like, I need to go and breathe the air and take this mask off or whatever. And it was funny because he looked at me, he's like, are you done? I'm like, yeah, I'm done. He goes, I was looking for you to tell you that at this time, me and the VP were taking your class out for a walk. So you're going to get some time to plan. I was like, are you serious? And I was so elated. He's like, just looking at me like, are you going to be okay? I'm like, am I going to be okay? I've not been relieved at all. Like, is this a sick joke? You better be coming to get my kids. He's like, I'm getting your kids. We're going to leave for 30 or 40 minutes. Do what you need to do. Do whatever you need to do in that time. And I'm thinking, wow, like he's not doing whatever paperwork or whatever's happening in the building. And I guess he feels good enough about leaving the building because that's the other thing this year. The administrators never leave. They're always in the building. All their meetings are virtual. They're not going anywhere, right? They can't. They don't. So I wanted to just say, I found myself a couple of times switching and saying, okay, if I were the administrator, what would I be going through right now? And then I think of the two of them running around, making sure everybody's got their kids, everybody's okay. And then they're doing what they can to provide what they can. But really, I mean, when my principal tells me he wakes up in the morning and he tries to figure out how to staff his building, I get that the last thing on his mind is teachers' preparation time. But I do know that my principals care about it. Like, they are doing everything they can to give us time. But now the norm is we don't get the time. So when they tell you you're getting it, first of all, I don't believe it until the whites of the eyes of the person who's taking over walk in my room. So I don't even plan that I'm going to get to plan, because I know anything can happen. So I have something for them to do, but it's go time until they walk in. They come to the door. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. This is what you're going to be doing. And I leave. But then I don't know what to do with myself, because I found other ways, other times to plan to do my job, to make sure that I have something prepared for my students. So even when you do get it, you're looking around like, I don't know what to do with it. I found myself the other day in a room with 2 other teachers, and we're looking at each other. We were like, what do we do? We're supposed to be planning. I don't even know what to plan. Like, I'm planned. I don't know what to do next. Do you need to? And it was funny because we were like, do you need to make any phone calls? No. Do you have anything you want to like look at in terms of assessment or evaluation? Yeah, but that means I have to get up and go back to my class. I'm like, okay, sorry, forget that I said that. Like, this is what's happening in elementary school right now. And my wife, she's experiencing the same thing. And the one day I was in the kitchen and I said to her, hey, I might get planning time today. Like, I was all like excited. She goes, why are you doing this to yourself? It's been like 12 days in a row that you've not gotten it. What makes you think you're going to get it today? And I'm like, I just need something. I need something. And right now I'm staring at the sun and I'm blinding myself thinking I might get planning time. And she just laughs at me, gets her stuff and goes to work. She's in the same boat as me in a way. So craziness. And then on top of that, so yeah, I want to think about being a leader, right? But Ramona, I was this close. Everything's ready. Like, everything's ready in terms of, welcome me to an interview. Like, I'm ready to talk to you. And then you have those talks with people. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, not doing it.
I don't remember. I don't know if you sort of had been, both of you, on the trajectory to take these courses before me, but I don't recall ever, like, no one has talked to me or talked around me about the process of approaching, becoming an administrator. I think with the scrutiny that us 3 are putting on this, I don't recall anyone talking about it this way. I feel like people, they sort of launch from PQP1, and from that point, for the most part, they're strapped to that rocket and they're just going, and, the aim is there's no plateau until you get to the short list. Like, you don't stop. You just don't stop. Almost like I had the sense like people were talking about, like, there's actually even some danger in stopping, because if you don't keep pushing hard, like, you're just not going to make it. It's fascinating how this whole conversation has really slowed stuff down. And I think what all 3 of us have sort of accepted is that leadership management, we're all doing our stuff in our own way. And there's no assurance that any one of us 3 are going to end up in that space. But it's like, I don't recall ever, and I've had a few friends that have shifted into administration, and I don't remember any of them ever talking about the position. It was always like it was not a done deal, but you were on the track towards that position. I have heard of, now I think just because of some of my connections in the board, I've heard of a few people that haven't made it through. Like, they get stopped at certain levels. I have a cohort of friends, though, that have all made it through, and they all made it through kind of like their first time through. And I think that was kind of like, that was the deal that they thought they were signing into. I don't feel like I have any handle on that deal. I don't have any handle on that deal whatsoever. No assurance that this is going to be anything better than this conversation right now. Cheers to you both.
Yeah, and then the fear of applying, and that happens, right? That
do you have fear? I think I was going to push that button, but I don't. Do you have fear to apply?
Not so much to apply, but to get the job.
Oh,
right?
Here you go.
Make the leap to apply and then get the job and then go, whoa, what did I just do? Did I just make a huge mistake?
See, I think that's like Chids is kind of playing in that space too. Like his talk about interrogating the system. Yeah, it's I don't think that there's anything about making. I think these are all, put it this way, just because we're asking questions about the next step, I'm not thinking for a moment that we're not interested. But I think we're in the shopping slow stage. I buy fast all the time, but I shop so slow. I do. Karen laughs. She's like, how did you come to that decision? I'm like, well, I've been kind of thinking about it for about 2 months off and on, doing a little bit of research. And then I just sort of action it, right? So
what you're saying is we are amazing tire kickers.
I think we are. But again, I'll bring it back to, have you been around anyone else that's kicked the tires as much as us? I haven't heard this conversation. Even sitting in the PQP, like I said, even this PQP I'm in right now, the individuals, I can feel them. They're just like, everyone like wants to jump in and give an answer. Like, just like.
It's either full speed ahead or a hard no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't had this conversation with other people. You know what the really good thing about it is, I'm really happy with understanding what's holding me where I'm at. Yeah. I'm really happy to know that there are certain things about being a teacher, a classroom teacher, in the schedule, and I know my parameters right now, right? I know where I can flex, where I can't flex. I like that. I feel like there's more that I want to do. Classroom teacher, I love it. It's good, but I aspire to be a formal leader. I do. Mm-hmm. But what's my fear is that it won't happen. My fear is I'll just never get there. But then I guess what tempers that fear is the understanding that then I must be okay with what's holding me here and now if I never get there. At the moment, that's what it looks like for me. And I'm also scared how it's not just my job, right? Things are going to shift. What school I end up at, even as minuscule like of an issue as the time, my bell times. What are my bell times? Like right now I'm in a late starting school. So when I get home from work, everybody's home here and they're looking at me like, what took you so long? I'm like, my day just ended 30 minutes ago. I couldn't have left any sooner. And I walk in and you guys are like, where have you been? What do you mean, where have I been? I've been teaching. So there's, there's fear that I just won't do it. I'm scared of that. But then I look at the flip side. That means that what's holding me here is good stuff. I'm in no rush to jump into something that is going to be completely different. I'm in no rush, and I'm you bet I'm kicking the tires. It's a huge investment. Buying a new car or moving into formal leadership. So yeah, I'm kicking the tires, and I want to make sure as best as I can understand the parameters. And I know it's never going to be what it's advertised to be. It's just not. Because I've worked in a number of schools and I've seen all kinds of weird things happen, good and bad. I guess for me, I just need to be open to that, and I'm going to need to talk to my family more, because it certainly is going to shift things in the house. It's not going to be how it is now, and so part of me is like, I have to make sure they're good with it. And even if they say they're good, they could turn around after a year and say, this really sucks. Like, you're not home until this hour and you're constantly doing this or that. I have to be prepared for that as best as I can. But yeah, I like to kick the tires because and I'm like you, Clough, like I said to my wife the other day, I want to get a bike. She's like, oh, you'll have it right in time for winter because you're going to read everything and you're going to try to find the best deal. And you want, and what's killing me is COVID. I can't go to a store and sit on a bike. Like, I don't want a bike online. I want to sit on it. I want to feel it. I'm an experiential learner that way, right? And it's like, can't do that right now. I can buy food, but I can't buy a bike, which it's all good. But yeah, it's like, okay, do your research and you'll have it right in time for Christmas. It'll be a Christmas gift that you can't use in the summer because you spent all your time researching. And I'm kind of doing the same here. I'm trying to figure things out as best as I can. I just want to be as informed as I can. But that goes to the lack of transparency that I feel is happening in my school board. Every time I hear about something, it's through the grapevine and or a leader that I know in the system. And here's another thing. My friends that I used to kind of talk to when they were teachers, I don't talk to anymore now that they're vice principals. And I don't know if that's a me thing or a them thing or an us thing. Like they're busy and they're living their life, but we had a lot more connection before they became admin. And so now it's even more of, what I was concerned about, that whole lack of transparency. I have no idea what I'd be getting myself into with my board, except for all the hearsay and then experiences from certain administrators that I know. But just because they experience it in one way doesn't mean that I'm going to experience it. And, and I've been told that some of the questions I might ask might throw some people off. And my answer these days has been, then I guess I'm not going to become a formal leader in this system. Like, so if I don't ask and I get myself into a situation, then everybody's going to be pissed that I didn't ask. And then if I ask up front, some of my PLN worry that it's going to make people wonder about my commitment or whatever. And it's like, well, okay. Like, the one good thing about being older and experienced is that I understand that life it operates really funny. Like, there's never a guarantee about anything. There just isn't. So it's like one day you're strolling along and the next day you hit disaster, or you can hit some awesome experience. Like, you just don't know. Every day's just coming and going. And so you make the best out of it and you learn as much as you can. And trust me, like I'm soaking up, even though COVID's killing me, I'm soaking up all the learning experiences I can from the people I'm talking to and the conversations I do have with my principal and the other people in my PLN who are still reaching out to me, talking to me about leadership and stuff. Like, I'm gathering as much as I can from those conversations.
There's definitely something in me, something slightly cheeky. I think about, I want to be the first VP to be hired that's like 64.
Hey, Clough, you're 10 years past retirement. It's okay. It's part of my plan. It's part of my plan.
Oh, seriously. This is like, there's something just like really a little bit of cheeky dude, like just keep doing what you're doing, Clough. Like, keep asking questions, keep kind of, loving your job, keep sort of pursuing learning. And when you turn like 60, go into the process. And and just kind of move forward that way. I don't think anyone in my board has ever. I now want to look into that. I really do. I want to see who's the oldest. I want to find that out. I want to find out who's the oldest administrative hire that they've ever had. That would be pretty funny. I've started to I've had a few people, it's kind of popped up in conversation, because I'm not hiding that I'm taking the PQPs. Like, there's no advertisement there. But I've had people say, ask me, like, are you have you thought about it? Are you taking any of the courses? I saw you talking with admin multiple times. Do you have something going on? What's the side hustle? And I've had a few people say, yeah, you know what? That'd be cool. That'd be cool if you're a VP. Be cool if you're like, you do that for leadership. And I sort of took it as a compliment. But a couple people I've pushed back. I'm like, well, how am I doing now? Like, how am I doing right now with the lead? And do you notice anything? Like, I've almost felt like to take that as a compliment for something that I haven't succeeded at is really kind of weird and ego-centered. But to bring it back, like, how do you think I'm doing? I'm in that space now. I don't know, Ramona, I didn't tell you directly, but I took on the interim headship for Spec Ed. So it's kind of a funny space to be in because I've been observing. I've never had a POR in Spec Ed. I've been PORs in other spaces, but not in Spec Ed. So it's like, it's funny to take on a leadership position in something that I have a deep experience in, but it's temporary. So when I left on Friday, I don't know, it's for a leave. So I don't know if I'm still the interim head, but it measures into that same space. And part of what's making me move slow towards administration is because that's still a space I want to do leadership in before I go into the process of the interview process. So yeah, 62, 63. I'll wait and I'll interview. I don't think you folks are going to tolerate a decade of this podcast though. You're like, Clough, pull the trigger already.
Dude, I'll be in Florida golfing by then.
That's exactly it. Yeah. You're calling it in.
I was just going to say, yeah, Ramona she'll be off somewhere. I was actually thinking the Carolinas, but you'll be somewhere golfing. I don't know where I'll be.
Maybe Arizona. Actually, I think I like Arizona better than Florida.
Okay. I love Arizona.
Clough and I will be like season 28 of the Decoded podcast. This is season 28.
We'll be swearing by then for sure.
Oh my God.
I'll just join you from the 9th hole or the 19th hole.
It'll be perfect.
With your beverage.
You'll hologram in for that one.
Yeah.
Season 28. That's a quarter of a century from now.
Season
I know. Yeah, shrug it off. Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? Like the technology will be off the hook, right? Like we won't even have to sit in front of a computer. We'll just put the glasses on and, hey, what's going on, Clough? Welcome to season 28.
Won't be glasses. Won't be glasses. We'll
just think it.
The microchip in our brain will just switch over.
That would be nuts.
People are losing their minds over COVID vaccines. I think microchip in the brain might be. I
got my microchip yesterday. Got my microchip yesterday.
You know what I just found out? Did you know? I did not know this. So you remember 8 or 9 years ago, everyone was in lines for swine flu. Everyone was getting and that was like that was a pretty intense. Everyone's kind of afraid for different reasons, but similar. Felt pandemic-y. And I was talking to someone the other day that like, because I said that it's likely, I think that it's likely that we're gonna have to go for yearlies on this. Like we're gonna have, because of the variants, we're probably gonna have to go for COVID virus boosters every year. And that led to a conversation around whatever happened to the swine flu? Like, how come we don't have to get that anymore? And I was talking with my doctor today, and he said because they build the technology into the flu shot. And I had no idea that they would do that at the same time. They said depending on the year, they'll put the H1N1 variant or whatever in with the influenza shot. So you're getting it in the years that you need it. Did you two know that? Did you know that they did that?
No idea.
Yeah, that's kind of cool the way and he kept on. The other thing that was kind of fascinating was he was talking about, he said, yeah, they sometimes build that technology into the flu shot each year. I like it when my sort of like the way I conceptualize tech, I don't often conceptualize like the flu shot as tech, but he was very clear. He's like, that's tech. He said, that's medical technology. So yeah, learned something new today.
That's pretty cool.
I thought so, yeah.
So are we done? Are we good checking in again?
Just gonna say, are we ready to call this?
Yeah, I think we're good. This was a good talk. Good talk for sure.
I appreciate it. Hopefully, well, maybe. And now remember, I'm saying this because I'm in the middle of a break. So I'm cocooned according to my family. So I'm really in a good place. But like, it'd be really awesome if maybe our next step would be to invite a guest who could talk to us about our perceived tire kicking. I'd love to hear somebody's perspective in the role and whether they wish that they kicked the tires longer or that they were just ready, like Clough, like you're saying, all the robots ready to jump into the chair right away. They can't get into it fast enough.
I haven't met anybody that has acknowledged the slow process. Not a single person.
That's interesting, eh?
Yeah, not a single person. So yeah,
I hear a lot of never in a million years would I do that. Or
I do hear that a lot.
Or, jumping right in. I would agree. I don't think I'm not sure I know anybody who has the angst over this decision like we do.
It's good angst. This is the good kind of angst, though. It's like support group and research group all in one. And we're good with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it makes for good stories, right? Like,
yep.
I think it makes for good stories. Like my 10 years in between part 1 and part 2. I think that's friggin' awesome because then 10 years later, when I took part 2, it was the courses of courses. And had I done it right away, it probably just would have been baloney, like just getting it done to get it done, And at the time, the people that I knew in the course, they were all signing up for part 2 with the same guy.
Yeah.
Like the guy ran part 1 and there was no, I'm running part 1 again. It's like, okay, all of you are coming right back into my class in the same location, same everything, just different curriculum. And I'll never forget when I told the 2 people taking it the 2 people from my board who were taking it, they're like, you're not coming back? And I'm like, no. They were devastated. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's not working. It's not going to happen. And even my instructor near the end, when we met to talk about me passing, he was like, okay, so I haven't seen your paperwork for part 2. I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming back here for part 2. Oh, when are you coming back? I have no idea. 10 years, fast forward 10 years later, 10 years worth of experience, right? Like a lot of experience with different leaders in different places and getting my butt whooped and building my confidence. And it's like, yeah, I'm ready to take it. And it was the perfect storm. So I'm glad it worked out that way. But
only took me 12 years in between.
Okay, so you're I don't want to say worse than me, but
I just really like kicking tires.
I get it. Hey, I appreciate both your time and your honesty and authenticity in talking about this. I mean, this is the good stuff, I believe, right? And I'm not getting this stuff from other people, so it's good that at least you 2 are open to talking about it. And we've had a couple of people, 2 or 3 people join in and check us out, and some have tweeted, and Irma left a comment for us to consider here. I think it's great. I think that what we're doing here, I think looking back on it's going to be really special. I'm a collector. Clough knows that I'm a collector. So like, I could very well do Decoded podcast for 28 years, 28 seasons, but I think this is where this is the good stuff. This is the stuff nobody talks about. Mm-hmm. Either there's not enough time, or people haven't experienced it because they just haven't had to. They didn't need to think about it as much as we are thinking about it, maybe.
I think they also get tripped up in the thinking it has to be a certain thing. Like all 3 of us are so fortunate that we have the particular skill sets that allow us to see this as fluid. Like we have all done the grind of our own sort of solo casts. We know that method of reflection works for us. So I think coming to this in such a dressed down version is not because is any necessary shortcuts, but we see it sort of like elementally. We can sort of just look like, this is all we have to do. We just have to arrive. That's the only commitment. Do we have the night to arrive? Because we get the tech, we get the flow, we get the sort of sharing of the space, we get the honesty, the nuance, all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that's it. It's what kind of, again, I get to that space where I just don't. My meter gets low down to like 5%, and it's usually when it hits 5%, I'm like, oh, I got to reach out to those two. We need to sort of and we had that sort of soft kind of texting Twitter thing, like we should meet during the break. I think was Maharg, you did it, right? You dropped it. You're like, hey, are we going to get together?
Well, I think I was watching one of the Decodeds, and you guys were talking, and we should try and get together over the break.
Oh,
and then the break hit, and I'm like, geez, I haven't heard from these guys. Should we do something or what?
and that's what's cool about the fluidity of it, right? Like that's how we kind of exist in spaces, and we sort of know to sort of listen, test the wind and know that we need to come back together. So thank you, both of you, for continuing to push my brain. And like you said, Shid, share the stories. You're right. It is about the stories. And I think that's probably why people don't spend a lot of time kicking the tires, because it's not that interesting to do that over and over unless there's a different way that you can tell the story, right? So 56, the VP. 56. All right. That's a seasoned individual. That's a person that has a lot to offer. That's someone that starts administration at age 56.
Well, it's probably started maybe 54, but
still a lot of experience.
That's
teacher their whole life.
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot, because that's somebody that probably started teaching when they're like 26.
Yeah.
30 years of teaching experience. That's of education experience. That's bedrock, man. Like you got street cred at that point.
And not only, Frig, we were going to shut this down, but not only was it, in my opinion, not only does this person have a wealth of experience in education over that kind of time, they are also, in my opinion, built to be an administrator. The way that they build relationship with people, the way I've seen them talk to people and deal with conflict, they're built to be an effective administrator in terms of building relationships with people and making people feel like they are number one in order to do the job. So it's kind of cool that this person's starting a new career, really, because this person can punch out anytime. They could have, I guess, in the past few years, they could have easily retired with their full pension, but that's not what they're ready to do. They're ready to move into the next stage, which involves being a leader in the system with a lot of, what's the word I'm going to look for? Institutional knowledge sitting back there, right?
I love that. So yeah, maybe 55. Maybe I'll wait till I'm 55. Well, because you lay it against family life, right? I wait till I'm 55. So that's like 6 years out. Maddie's just finishing high school. She's like in her first year, whatever. So Jake's like mid-high school. That works. That flows with what Chiz was saying, like make it work with your life. 55. Although over 60 would be hilarious. So stay tuned.
But then we'll have to wait and see if your board has an issue with that. Will they?
You know what? If you'll get the story, you'll probably get the stories first, but I'll share the stories definitely.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, that was season 1, episode 7. Talk me through your process podcast. Thanks, you two.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Peace.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your break.
Yeah. Take care.
You as well, guys.